Greetings, sir and sirettes, and welcome back to Nimbatus with me, Elathrix, and of course, welcome to me finally coming back to Wales, finally back home after the last 5 days, and of course, as soon as I got home, of course, the internet's broke. Yep, there's an external fault which is going to be fixed in the next 5 days. So this video is going to be really late, so I do massively apologise for that. So expect a whole slew of episodes of everything coming out at once. I do really apologise, and it's really annoying because at the moment, I really want to fix this drone. Now, this drone is the drone we built in the previous video, and it is horribly, horribly broken in terms of just efficiency. I have had so many suggestions as to making this so much simpler. So, where is it completely broken then? Well, it's mostly with these buffer gates, which are completely not needed. In fact, the entire thing to do with the magnet is so stupidly done, I was embarrassed to upload the video, but I thought to myself, well, I have to leave Wales for a few days because of a family birthday and a few other issues of engineering and stuff going on around the apartment, so, well, I may as well just quickly build something and throw it out, and of course, that's when the internet breaks, so I can't fix it, so now I look like a dum-dum. So, with all of my rushed engineering aside, how could we fix this? Well, in the previous video, we had the directional sensor with the drone core setting off these two buffer gates, which then go on for 10 seconds, which then allow the gate to swap, which then, of course, causes the on and off switch to press off. When I could have just went ahead and used, if I can find the correct one, where are you now? There we are, this one will work. Ta-da! The XNOR gate activates the output key if both inputs are active or both inputs are inactive. Well, because we have a tolerance of 1, we don't really care about the double active because that's simply impossible unless we flip the sensor, because then you could use the top section anyway and just inverting the signals. Well, if they're both inactive, it means the drone is directly above the drone core. The satellite is above the drone core. This replaces almost everything. Like 4 or 5 gates with this. And I can't believe I didn't do that because I've already done that before with the light system that I've worked on in a previous build. Basically, I was a little bit embarrassed with the previous video, let me just say. It did prove me to be a rather airheaded individual. But today, we're going to do something similar to this, but we're going to make it more interesting. So, someone mentioned what you could do, and this is a great idea, a lot of you actually mentioned this, is instead of having the satellite, so let's go back to the drone we just on. As you can tell, my brain's a bit scattered right now still. Instead of having the satellite, what we could do is we could build in this into the hat section of the harvester drone. So you press a button, the hat flies off, flies back home, drops everything, and then maybe the hat explodes. Maybe the hat sets itself on fire, which I find far more fun, but also far more dangerous. There's a lot of things we can do with this, so that's what we're going to do. Plus, we can add almost all of the tech on the hat, or the satellite, onto the drone core itself. There's almost no need to have all of this on the satellite because we're not using any, any logic splitters outside of this one, which is only attached to the thrusters on the main drone so that we can have more keys. Also, we need to use the sodding tag system because, my god, will that make my life easier. But I am a lazy sod, as I've previously explained. So with that, let's rebuild everything, but this time, let's make it work properly, shall we? So, the hat section. I think I'll build the hat separately first, then I'll build the harvester drone, then I will marry the couple, so they are one in the same. Okay, so, for the hat, we're going to need directional sensor for gravity, we're going to need directional sensor for drone core, and that's actually it. Yeah, we don't need the mouse anymore because we're not going to have it follow us, so there's one less thing we need. So that's all well and good. Gravity is just there to make sure everything is nice and stable. So actually what I'm going to do is swap you to gravity, and you're going to become drone core. That way we can have this one on a logic splitter to make everything easier on myself once again. If I sound a bit weird today, it's because I've had basically 4 days of travel this week, and my mind is just... it isn't. Basically. So, I'll be right back. I'm going to do all the basic stuff we did before, but this time, hopefully, significantly better. This may look odd, but yep, that proves that tags work. Of course they work, but proves that they work in the way I think they work. So we have on here drone left, then we have drone left, and both of those can work with each other. I'm currently just using this one manually just to prove it works, which essentially means we have a tag, we have an input, output, which isn't a pressable button. This way it'll be much easier to remember, and we don't have to have keys all over the place, which are all just weirdly done. So this will make my life a lot easier in the long term, once I get used to using them a bit more. Okay, all well and good. So, we have that, the gravity sensor. So, with the directional sensor, what I think I'm going to have is... I think there's going to be an AND gate system here. Yeah, there's definitely going to be an AND gate system, so that these don't activate when they're still attached to my control drone, to the harvesting drone. Otherwise, that's going to be incredibly annoying. So instead, there's going to be an AND gate, which means it requires me to have let go, so that'll be a switch or a button or whatevs, and then also the directional sensor going off. That way, yeah, it won't make everything way more annoying than it has to be. Good. So we're going with the more difficult option, and we're going with the heaters. The reason is, the heaters I just think are far more fun. Simple as that, I like to see things burn. So we are, of course, using the heaters. Now, the thing to consider is it's going to take some time to destroy this drone using the heaters, and by then, there's a good chance the resource will already be given to the Nimbatus. So honestly, I don't think there needs to be a delay. It very quickly gives the resources away, and it takes quite a while for fire to actually destroy blocks. So I don't think there needs to be any delay between this thing being stationary and this thing activating the heaters. Now, of course, we don't even need to use magnets this time, so we don't even need the magnet system, which was causing all the problems in the previous video, but we can use that instead to activate the heaters. You are above target, activate, burn. Everything gets destroyed, everyone is happy, although there is a chance something on fire will fall into the Nimbatus itself, the resource storage section, whatever you want to call it, and that could kill the drone core. That's a risk I'm willing to take. I'm hoping everything gets destroyed before this thing actually lands. Plus, there's a good chance as things break, it's going to just fly off in a random direction, so... In fact, we could do that, just once it's released, just fly upwards. There's lots of stuff we could do. For now, we're going with fire. Okay, I think that's all we need on the hat. We have the ability to see how high up we are, which can activate these bottom thrusters. Okay, so we actually need some top thrusters, so instantly figured out one thing we need. There we are. Honestly, don't even need these, but I like having them there. That's quite a big hat. We could probably make this smaller, but that's fine, especially since the harvester drone will also be a combat drone, so that's going to be quite big as well. We don't need to separate the gravity thrusters, since they will actually help out the main drone. Yeah, all is well and good. So now I need to build the harvester, figure out what we're going to do in terms of releasing this thing. So what I'm thinking of is with the AND gates, they can be hooked up to the release button for the hat. Not the spawn a new one, but just the release button, because after the release button has been pressed, it's going to be quite some time before we need to press it again. So I just need to remember to press it multiple times. Oh, actually no. Really simple thing we could do. On-off switch. Lovely. So the on switch is release, the off switch could be something as simple as create the next one. Or it could be manual. Or it could be automatic. There's actually quite a lot we could do there. Here's one problem I just thought of, which can actually be fixed, thankfully, by simply spawning this underneath. But if we were to spawn this hat above the drone core straight away, it's going to instantly activate the fire. And yeah, that'll definitely be long enough to give the resources. In fact, that's taking longer than I expected. Wow, it's like way too long. Yeah, that's fine. There we go. Yeah, that should not hurt the drone core at all. There's no chance that can fall down fast enough and hurt the drone core. Okay, good. Yep, all good. So, really simple gate here, which will only activate if it's above, because if it's below, because of the lovely way that the tolerance works, there's no way that can ever activate if it's underneath the drone core, only if it's above, which will never happen unless I've released the hat. Okay, cool. So here is my current way to get the hat to fly back to base without it constantly trying to do so when it's being used as a hat. So we have space, which is going to be my button to release the hat, as the on button here, which then activates on. These AND gates require on and drone right, coming from the directional sensor, to activate right. Then we have right. over here. And then we've done the same for left as well, so it requires that button to be pressed, so it assumes that the drone hat has been released. That way, this isn't going to be constantly used and causing our harvester drone to move all over the place when it's still attached to the harvester drone. Then the off button here, which is burn, basically means as soon as the drone reaches the target, the hat reaches the target, which is so weird to say, it will then turn itself off, meaning a new hat can be created safely without that one being active because the on-off switch is going. Now, the one problem with that is it does mean we have to wait until the hat returns all the way to the drone core to spawn in a new hat. Which is fine, because it means we can do other things. We can dig out resources, we can do the mission, whatever. It still makes things more efficient. But it seems wrong. It seems to reduce how useful the hat is. So I'm sure there's a way that we can spawn in a new hat and it have its own controls. I just can't think of what. Or how. Or when. I just thought of a problem before we've even used this. Whilst this is burning, it's going to give that burn command to the main drone as well. So if we spawn in a new hat, it will instantly burn itself up. So we need to separate that. The problem is, if we separate that, it can't be connected to these. So one easy way to do this would just be, here is a light. Is the off button currently being pressed, aka burn? Then please do not spawn in a hat, because it's going to set itself on fire. If the red light is off, it's safe to go. Light works, fire still works, okay. So I was wrong about one thing. For some reason I wanted to use an AND gate. Once again, you can use this. I was tempted to use a few of the other gates as well. The XOR gate would be interesting for a lot of things, but right now I do think this is perfect, because both inputs inactive means we're on top of the target. That's exactly what we want. There's probably other ways of doing this again, but I will learn. Clearly I'm learning, I'm getting there eventually. I might actually be half decent. It's just gonna take a while. Okay, with the on button switched, it is doing everything expectedly. It's just weird because it's actually attached to the drone. If I manually turn it off, everything except for the gravity will turn off. Yep. Perfect. Great. Fantastic. Wonderful. Okay, so that is actually really close to being done now. Way too big, though. We could definitely make this smaller. This is huge. And this is going to go on top of the secondary drone. Well, I'm going to call it a prototype, okay? You get above, and you burn. And it's also turned it off. If I turn it back on again, it should now turn to the left. Excellent. It is working as intended. Stop there. Fantastic. Now you would release the resource. You burn away into nothingness, hopefully. Pretend this drone core is in the resource depositing section. And yeah, it takes forever for things to burn to death. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Completely safe, harmless, and explosive. Things which normally don't go well together. So that is way too big. The problem is I don't really have time today. I really wasn't going to record tonight anyway, but I was really in the mood to try and make this work. Yeah, that could be made smaller in a number of ways. For now, we're just going to leave it as it is and make sure the harvesting drone is equally as chunky, so that way it doesn't look quite as terrible, plus we can add some shields and stuff. Yeah, so far though, it does seem to work okay. Although, these two need to be removed now because they're right in the middle of the drone, which just simply won't work out. If I press space, that will release that and it should try to get back home. Of course, this is all messed up because the altitude in the test mode is really, really weird. Plus, this drone core should be way lower down. Okay, it's all working though. I mean, you can't argue that. It works. This is going to be one truly hideous drone, but it should work out just fine. The only issue I'm thinking of is the resource harvesters attached to the hat are so high up. It could be awkward to harvest resource sometimes, so I'm thinking of maybe extending the hat sort of around the main drone, if that makes sense. Anyway, okay, drone's down there. Release you! I'll fly on back home. And it did overshoot. Okay, so there's many ways we can solve the overshooting issue, so that's no problem. And pop, please. And pop. Excellent. The red light's on, which means it's now safe to create a brand new drone. And release. That burns up and dies. Come on. Burn up and die. And it's now safe to make a new drone. Okay, the one problem I'm having here is that burning is very slow. It's reaching the damage level very quickly, but it does take a while to actually die. So I might need to just add a delayed TNT section instead, which would be a shame. Also, need more gravity sensors on this thing if the hat isn't on. Because this isn't ideal. It's acrobatic, but it's not ideal. So, one inefficiency we've already done in this video is we could have used this gate as well. Activates the output key if both of the input keys are not pressed. This one is, well, it does more stuff than is needed. Doesn't change anything, but we definitely could have made that a little bit cleaner. Learning. Sadly, the heaters didn't work, but now this should. So what I've got, really simply, is I've set up a delay, which activates when the heaters normally would have activated, then after 5 seconds, it detonates all of this lovely, lovely TNT. So, release you. That should have set off a timer. 3. There we go. Maybe a bit too short though, so should have that a little bit longer, maybe 4 or 5 seconds. That will allow us to unload the resource, and then simply detonate our lovely satellite. Also need to change how I've done this with the resource harvesters. Timer should have started. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Everything is going according to plan. So, one thing I did do incorrectly is set up the light, which is located here. It's a bit hard to see when it's off. And that was, the light was always on if this was above the drone or dead, which means it's hard to tell, is this actually dead or not? We could also add a camera, but still, what should happen now is when it detonates, the light should turn on briefly. And then turn off. There we go. So that just gives me an indicator. It's dying. It is dead. Everything is nice and done. Lovely, lovely, lovely. In fact, we could make that a little bit longer. In fact, I will. That'll be quite easy. Can you please stop? I want to do one final test. There we are. Okay, so we have a little bit of resource. Release the drone. Now you should go all the way home. And once you do, that will start the detonate cycle. Once you detonate, that should turn this light green for 10 seconds because there's now a buffer gate giving a brand new command after the detonate command has been given. And until we see that go green, it's not safe to make a new hat. Yep, released all the resource. Explodes. Light goes green. It's fine to make a new hat. Why does that shield seem to shift when I release the hat? Doesn't matter. And that's fine. And then we're a half-decent combat drone. Of course, this needs to be changed. Drastically, I mean. The whole thing's unstable. In terms of functionality, though, once again, it works fine. I've learned quite a bit about logic gates this time. Still a lot to learn, but we're making progress. I would rather show the progress than show the end result, because I think that's incredibly boring. You can all learn with me. Oh. So this should now be the finished product for today. Swap over. Excellent. Shields on off. And to begin with, I want to release our drone straight away. So goodbye to the hat. That should now detonate. Giving us the all clear. Excellent. And now we should have just a half-decent combat drone. Like I've said before, this should be okay, honestly. It's fairly quick. Actually, it's incredibly quick. Yeah, it's very easy to control. Needs a bit more up-thrust, it seems. Shield's been so nerfed since the early days, and I'm okay with that. Kind of miss having the Doom satellite following us around, but that's fine. Goodbye to you. Okay, we now need the hat. So we do this, la-di-da, release, and that actually released way easier. We have 400 red resource currently. That should now be going home. I think I will attach a camera to this just so I can watch it on the minimap as well. Just a very small change to make it easier to figure out what's going on. Released all the resource, fantastic, then detonate. And now I've got the all clear once again, telling me, go ahead, you can spawn in a new hat if you want, mate. Because that's how it speaks, of course. Ooh. I really hate these insects so much. Stop detonating, please. There we are. Fire everything. I have lowered the energy of the rockets and up to the damage, so we actually now have too many batteries, and thus we are carrying too much weight. It's a balancing act, really. Okay, we need a new hat. Let's go ahead and harvest all. Okay, good. We can just about harvest what's at the bottom of the drone, but I still think we need to have those harvests a little bit lower. Otherwise, times like this, they're fine, but they're annoying. And that's the whole point of the hat, to remove annoyance, because we don't need to have all the resource with us all the time. There we go. 2 full containers. Let's get to a nice safe location. And also, we can test if the 3-second delay is enough. Can this give all of the resources to the harvester section, or will it detonate too early? Follow it, my rockets. Or just hit me instead. I mean, both work. The new finished version for tonight. So, it's even more weird looking, but now it can harvest directly underneath, which is fine. And remember, this is only going to be attached during the harvesting section, in which I release it, which it still releases just fine. Shouldn't have hit it then, though. That was my fault. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Apparently I count a bit too quick. But there we go. It detonates, and now it has longer to release the resources. We can always change the timing with that later, and we can change how high up it is. So if it does almost hurt the drone core, it's still not a major issue. In other words, it works fine. And then, we are a combat drone. And a decent one at that. As I've said many times, I keep on repeating myself today. It's a really bad thing. I really do keep on repeating myself. I keep repeating myself. It's such a bad thing. I keep repeating myself. It's a really bad thing. So apparently I'd messed up anyway. So now it's easier. What I'd accidentally done is I'd attached these 2 harvesters on both sides to the one section with the logic splitter, which essentially meant I couldn't control them manually. Now I can. Now everything's easier. Okay, you go off. And now I'm finally using it, just for the sake of using it. Yep, I will say this is definitely easier than the satellite version, and will most likely become my go-to drone, even though it's hideous. We could definitely make it more efficient. We definitely have too many energy cells on this thing. We do simply not need them. A little resource... No, is this the big resource? Or the... No, it's the big resource. Excellent. Okay. Now we just have to wait. Now look at how much easier that is to harvest. No effort at all. Then back to the surface so that we can release this safely after killing these things. Come on, there we are. And release. Now that will go home and give 2 more sections worth of resource. In fact, I'm going to make sure it definitely empties those resource canisters. I'm faster than you! Now testing out, just for the sake of properly testing out, and honestly, really, really happy with the end result. I was a bit skeptical at one point, but now, incredibly pleased. Well, let's make sure we don't die though, just after saying that. I hear that would be lovely. Okay, you can all go away. Now there should be a nice cache of resources here, which will be our final test. Hello. Click. Much, much easier to harvest now I've set it up correctly. Who would have thought something working correctly tends to be better than something working incorrectly? Who would have thought? And then... release. That really does detach easier than expected as well. Okay, I'll just follow along and make sure the 5-second delay is good enough for these, and yeah, just really happy. It all ended up for the best, and I've learned some things. And isn't that really what's important? Perfect. I don't know if that did just destroy some of the resource at the bottom, but we can definitely increase the delay even further, even at this altitude, so that's fine. Really, really happy with how this has turned out, and I really hope you've enjoyed the video whenever it eventually comes out. So if you have enjoyed the video, then of course, likes, favourites, shares, comments, all that good stuff helps out me, helps out the channel, and most importantly, shows that Nimbatus is a series you wish to see continued in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. We continue to learn day by day. This is a educational channel. An educational channel. Good time to mess up there, Lathrix.